Hello, Jim Schwimmer here. Welcome to today's vlog. Before we get into today's subject, I just want to revisit yesterday's subject for a moment. In a way, yesterday and today's subjects are related. Yesterday I was talking about what I've been seeing in the various polls, the betting sites, and a methodology that has a 100% track record of success, something called the 13 Keys to the White House, how they all showed Trump in real trouble and in danger of losing in November, to the point where we can almost say that it's probable. There are 5 months until the election. Something could change, but I just want to first update from yesterday because the trend is not only just as bad, it's actually getting worse. So I just want to give you these two items. I want to start out with the polling data. As you can see from this chart, by the way, I get all these charts from realclearpolitics.com, where you can find tons of information, plus articles, but tons of statistical information, not just on national elections, but on individual Senate races and House of Representative races, party favorability, so on and so forth. So this first one is the polling data. So you see Biden has an average lead of 6 points over Trump. The most recent poll is from CBS YouGov, and it shows Biden up 4. But more important, if you look at this chart, you'll see that 3 of the polls, CBS News YouGov and Rasmussen Reports and CNBC, those are all of likely voters. That is the most important voting block. These are voters who have a history of voting in every or just about every past election and indicating that they intend to vote in the next election. So they are favoring Biden. Now we go to the betting odds. Now the betting odds, the betting sites, they have a very good track record too of predicting winners because, as I said yesterday, they don't just give their opinions, they put their money where their mouths are. They bet actual money on who is going to win. And I can add a caveat, is that sometimes things change. In other words, if you go back a few months, it showed Biden being ahead of Trump, betting on who's going to win. Then Trump pulled ahead, substantially ahead. But now, I said that 2 days ago, or as of last Friday, the spread was 3.8 in favor of Trump. And then yesterday it was 2.1. And what is it today? It's 0.9, less than a percentage point. And as you can see from the chart, this is updated every single day. It's not like these polls, some of them are a few weeks old. These betting odds are updated every day. The gap is narrowing. I could see very soon Biden pulling ahead. Now, I want to revisit the 13 keys because there is something important here. You have Trump using the term Sleepy Joe, disparaging his opponents, remember Crooked Hillary, and making the argument that Joe Biden is unelectable. But I want to quote from Allan Lichtman, the professor of political history. He's a professor of political history at American University. And here's what he says about his methodology. And remember that he has a 100% successful track record of predicting the winner of the popular vote. So as I said yesterday, if this holds, Trump would have to win in the Electoral College because, as I said yesterday, there are 13 keys. If 6 or more are false, then Trump will lose. 4 of those are locked in. I'm not going to go into the details that I went into yesterday. You can watch yesterday's vlog. But I counted 8 negatives altogether. I don't see 3 out of 8 changing. That is why a Trump supporter should be concerned. But this idea of Sleepy Joe, this article I'm quoting from, this is from March. So this is going back to March when Sanders was still in the race, in the primary race. So that explains the reference to Sanders. So now these quotes from Salon. Salon is the website that interviewed Lichtman. Quote, "The polls have no influence on the keys, which are based on big picture events such as the long and short term economy, scandal, social unrest, and foreign successes and failures." Lichtman also told Salon that if Trump loses, his opponent is almost irrelevant. It simply won't matter whether the Democrats have nominated Biden or Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Trump's potential defeat has, quote, "nothing to do with Joe Biden whatsoever." Remember, the basic theory behind the keys, the 13 keys to the White House, is that elections are essentially votes up or down on whether or not the party holding the White House should get 4 more years, unquote. He added that while he is not advocating for any candidate, quote, "this notion that Sanders is unelectable is just false. Except for these once-in-a-generation candidates," he earlier cited Ronald Reagan and Barack Obama, "we have no idea who is electable," unquote. So I just wanted to share that with everybody, and now we get on to today's subject, because one of the 13 keys to the White House is social unrest. If there has been social unrest, that counts against the party in the White House. Obviously, we are having a heck of a lot of social unrest, and justly or unjustly, according at least to Lichtman's methodology, Trump is going to get the blame for it. So there is only one thing Trump can do, which he should be doing anyway, and as a lead-in to that, I want to show you this nice little table I created. Well, you know what? Before I show you the table, here is a question, a little pop quiz. What do almost all of these cities where the riots are occurring have in common? Take a second to think. I'll give you a second. Okay, now look at the table. Look at that right column. I even put the answer in bold for you. As you can see, almost every city is governed by a Democrat. The only exception I can see is Las Vegas, where the mayor is an independent, and from what I could read about her, she is liberal, so I would count her in the Democratic column. She is not a conservative from what I could see. And the only Republican I see on the list is the mayor of Bakersfield, California, leading me to believe that this Republican is an Arnold Schwarzenegger Republican, meaning a very liberal Republican, Rockefeller Republican, they used to call them in my younger days, after Nelson Rockefeller, former governor of New York, very liberal Republican. So that is what they have in common. All of these cities are governed by Democrats, but there is one more obvious conclusion one can draw from this, because if the mayors of all of these cities, and by the way, that is 25 out of 27 cities, or 92.5925925925929%. We'll just round that off to 92.5% of these mayors are Democrats, which means that the city is Democratic, because how did they get elected in the first place if the majority is not Democrat, unless you're talking about New York, unless you're talking about the only exception I could think of, New York City, where Rudy Giuliani was elected because things had gotten so bad under the previous successive Democratic mayors. He brought order and prosperity to the city, but after he did that, he had no legacy. Now we have, or I can't say we, I used to live in New York until about a year ago, so I keep saying we. Now they have Bill de Blasio. We're seeing the results of that. But it says to me that if the mayor is a Democrat, that the majority of the citizens of those cities are Democrats, and it would follow from both of those that most of these rioters are Democrats too, or I'll say liberal, okay, because there are conservative and moderate Democrats, but I would say that none of these people participating in these riots, I would say that none of them are going to be voting for Trump in November. And that leads me to what Trump must do. It is the right thing to do, number one, but it can help him get reelected because, well, that's what helped Nixon get elected. The 68 riots outside the Democratic Convention in Chicago, a Democrat-run city, of course, and that helped him get elected. That was a social unrest key that worked against the Democrats because the incumbent was Lyndon Johnson, a Democrat. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this time because you could, as I am doing, pin these riots on the liberal democratic worldview, not just in what makes these rioters think that it's okay to riot, but the restrained response of these mayors who, well, Bill de Blasio refusing to call out the National Guard. I am from Detroit, and I was born and raised there and was there in 1967 during the 1967 Detroit riots. And it was necessary to call out the National Guard to put down that riot. And by the way, another Democrat-run city, Detroit, and we see what happened to it. So what Trump needs to do, because this will count against him, he has to make the point, which is very important, because I really worry now if he is not reelected, if we are going to legitimize liberal democratic governance. Trump should say, well, this is what you're going to get. If you vote for a Democrat, you are not voting, just to be clear, you are not voting for riots, but you are voting for the philosophy that allows these riots to happen. You are voting for the philosophy that when these riots do happen, the police will be lax in putting it down, or at least the police chief and the mayor will be lax in ordering the police to put it down, that the National Guard will not be called out at an early stage, and that you will have these demonstrations and the accompanying looting and destruction of property, many of which stores, because these are stores that are being vandalized and destroyed, are owned by black people who put everything that they had, their whole hearts and souls and sweat and tears, more tears now, seeing their businesses and their dreams destroyed. That's what you're voting for. If you vote Democratic, if you put Biden in office, you're going to have, and especially if Biden selects Kamala Harris, a very liberal Democrat, more liberal than Joe Biden. Joe Biden has had to move to the left to get his base in order, but Kamala Harris is a liberal. She doesn't have to move left. She is already there, and if for some reason Biden cannot finish his term and Kamala Harris becomes president, then you're going to see even more tolerance of this kind of action. You're going to see Barack Obama style learning moments. What you are not going to see is rule of law, law and order, and condemnation of this kind of behavior. I am even wondering right now if we're going to see any jail sentences or any substantial jail sentences for all these people who are being arrested. I have a feeling that a lot of this destruction of property is just going to be called civil disobedience. That's not civil disobedience. That is going to be the choice that voters are going to face in November, and Trump needs to make that absolutely clear. I don't have any hope, to be honest, for the Democratic-run cities, these cities where the riots are occurring, I think that those citizens are just going to go out and vote for Democrats again, go out and vote for Joe Biden. I have to wonder, though, why anybody else, anybody not living in one of these cities, seeing what's happening in these cities that are run by Democrats, why they would vote for even a chance of something similar happening in their city, which is a chance that you take if you elect Democrats, or at least liberal Democrats. And that's it for today. Thanks for stopping by. Thumbs up if you like this video. Share it with anybody you think would also like the video. Got any comments? You can put them in the comment section below the video. Questions, suggestions for future topics. And you can subscribe and finally come back and see me again. I look forward to seeing all of you again. And until I do see all of you again, bye.